Yeah! New month, new event. What do we have for this month? Let's see. A column, huh? I bet there's only a couple units which are actually used. Uh-oh. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. JC here with another video on Disgaea RPG. Since we'll have a break before the next collab, I've decided to talk about one of the aspects of the game that bothers me the most, and how it has changed recently in JP: power creep. Ever since the meta shift Thunderlade Dilahar brought, people have been discouraged to get new units because they think units previous to the meta shift will become useless. But that's not exactly right. Units get outdated even faster than that. There are three aspects you need to take into consideration when talking about power creep in Disgaea RPG. First of all, stats. This game has a very particular way to deal with stats. Instead of giving unique stats to each character, which makes a clear difference between one another, a stat line is established, and all characters within said stat line have similar values. For example, let's compare the first badass after the 15 million meta shift and the last badass before the 16 million meta, Fallen Besenflown and Majin Hanako. Fallen Besenflown has 15 million 3000 attack, while Majin Hanako has 15 million 3450 attack. In terms of attack, Majin Hanako has only 450 more attack. There's barely any difference between one and the other, but all the other stats are higher. In fact, Fallen Besenflown has only one stat that hits the 15 million mark, while Majin Hanako has 3. For raids and sparse base, the extra defensive stats aren't very useful unless your attacker gets extra damage by adding their defensive stats on damage calculation, like Love X. Of course, defensive stats are very useful on PvP, but depending on your strategy, you may not need them either. The next thing that determines power creep are abilities. In the 15 million meta, we see a big change in how much damage a unit could deal thanks to the damage boost given by abilities. Krichevskoy and Future War Planner give themselves a 60% damage boost. Overlord Metalia and Witch Lahar, the badass units we are receiving this month, give themselves a 70% damage boost. And at the end of the 15 million meta, Bitch Saint Edna will give herself 2 damage boosts, which grant a total 80% skill damage boost. But damage boosting isn't all that there is to abilities. Buffs and granted buffs are also important, as the faster you get to the buff cap, the faster you'll beat the enemy. Units like Zeta and Love X give a big buff to their stats from the very beginning, allowing you to get a good score in challenging content. There's also the option of using units with the snowball buffing abilities, like the SX and Formal Babatoris. These are good for long battles, but you won't see these kind of units at the top of the leaderboard, because their DPS isn't as good as the one from a unit which gives themselves big buffs from the very beginning. The last aspect of abilities, which determines how powerful a unit can be, are the effects which grant a unit its identity. A clear example of this is Nissa. She is known for being the only unit which can revive in the game. She gets stronger the less HP she has. Right now, there's few units which have an extremely unique playstyle given by their abilities, but the more the game progresses, the more units there will be that have their own identity. Witch Lahar and Primeval Overlord Kilidia are 2 units which grant themselves 1000 action gauge at the cost of some SP. This is a pretty unique trait that not many units have, and it's particularly good for sparse base, as you won't need to use Formal Artina to reduce the amount of turns you need to beat the boss. The only thing left that we need to take into consideration when talking about power creep are skills. Both the effect and the rank are very important. Right now we're at a stage where skills have multiple effects and or buffs, but they usually don't surpass the 50% mark. As I have mentioned previously in other videos, newer units usually get slightly better effects than their older counterparts. But with the right team comes, that difference may not be enough reason to replace the units you have already built, especially considering that the Ampule system will allow us to reach the buff cap quickly. As valuable as a skill effect may be, they are usually not enough reason to roll for a character. What you want is that they synergize with their abilities. Madoka and Rubens are pretty similar. They both have an overheal skill which grants critical rate, and they both have their own ways to give SP, but Rubens is clearly the better option because her supportive skills synergize with her abilities. Last we have the skill rank. At the moment, skills only go up to S rank. With the arrival of Crown Balvatoris, that will change. He will be the first unit that gets an SS rank skill, which obviously deals more damage compared to previous units. And I'm sure in the future we'll have units with an SSS rank or an EX rank. Whatever the case, this is another thing that we need to factor in when talking about power creep. SS rank attacks will become the standard for main attackers, so don't worry too much about it. Now that we have talked about all the aspects that affect power creep, it's time to talk about what's happening in JP. As of late, Many old units have been receiving buffs to their stats, skills, and abilities. This is pretty good, and I think Forward Works wants to standardize stats so that you can choose whichever unit you want. Although, not all is good. While the buffs make old attackers usable again, their skills rank isn't buffed, so they're still inferior to newer units. Supporters are the ones who get benefit the most from this buff, as their effects become good enough to be used in more scenarios than they previously were, and old staples like Archangel Flown become even better. I think stats, damage boosts, and skill rank should be standardized on a regular basis, so that players can use their favorite characters or the units that they have invested in. But to balance the game, some units could have slightly higher stats, like 500,000 more attack or so, something noticeable but not game breaking. Another thing that would really help would be giving their own identity to characters. The combination of abilities and skill effects can make really interesting and fun units which play in their own unique way, rather than just being fast attackers or snowball attackers. Thankfully, supporters don't suffer from power creep as much as attackers. But what do you think? Do you think power creep hits too hard in this game? Which unit would you like to receive buffs? What kind of abilities would give a very unique identity to a unit? Let me know in the comments. See ya!